Good afternoon everyone. Maupay nga kulop haaton nga tanan. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Welcome to Hisgut Kalibungan, an online discussion series on environmental issues and concerns in Eastern Visayas. Today, we are located here at Wild Pigs Farm, located in Barangay Divisoria, Alang-Alang, Leyte. We all know that environmental conservation is definitely an urgent priority concern. Problems like the continued depletion of our natural resources, global warming, unabated environmental pollution and degradation are just some of the serious issues that affect each and every one of us and the future generations. If left unattended, this planet, which we call our home, will sooner or later be unable to provide and sustain our basic human needs. Hisgut Kalibungan, which in English means environmental discussion, is an online project that aims to contribute to the sustained effort of saving the world from irreversible ecological destruction. More specifically, Hisgut Kalibungan is a project that seeks to discuss and analyze urgent environmental issues and concerns in Eastern Visayas. By promoting and strengthening cooperation and collaboration between and among entities, Hisgut Kalibungan seeks to assist in the formulation of appropriate policy initiatives that will further advance the purposes and goals of environmental conservation in Eastern Visayas. This afternoon's episode is entitled Huruhisgutay number 4, Wildlife Conservation and Management. In this episode, the members of our discussion panel will underscore and bring to the surface issues and concerns that are related to the management and conservation of our wildlife resources, particularly in Eastern Visayas. As we all know, the goal of protecting our wildlife resources from unabated abuse and destruction is a vital concern that every one of us must understand and seriously look into. Spearheaded by specific government agencies in partnership with privately led initiatives, the goal of emphasizing the role that wildlife resources contribute to human survival is an important concern that need to be continuously disseminated, addressed, and discussed about. At this point, allow us to introduce to everyone the distinguished members of this episode's discussion forum. Our first panel member is an associate professor of the Division of Natural Sciences and Mathematics of UPV Tacloban College, who currently serves as a program coordinator of the Master of Science in Environmental Science program of the said college. His research interests are in the area of biodiversity conservation, natural and biological resources management, protected area management, as well as environmental impact assessment. His most recent works include the following. He served as collaborator in a DOST PCARD-funded project led by the Cebu Technological University entitled DNA Barcoding for Molecular Identification of Endemic Flora for Sustainable Biodiversity Conservation in Cebu Island Key Biodiversity Areas. He also served as principal investigator in a UPV in-house funded project entitled Habitat Assessment and Population Survey of Philippine tarsier in forested areas in Tacloban City, Leyte. Ladies and gentlemen, allow us to introduce to all of you today Dr. Richard B. Parilla. Our second panel member serves as a community facilitator and research assistant of the Giwan Development Foundation, Incorporated. In 2017 to 2018, she served as project assistant for the Lawaan Integrated Ecosystems Conservation Project, where they assessed, together with local scientists, the biophysical and socio-economic status of the municipality, including the Bulusao Watershed and Forest Reserve. Along with a team of experts, they assisted the municipality in formulating and adopting a forest land use plan and lobbied for the implementation of a local ordinance banning the seeding or introduction of invasive species in the rivers of Lawaan, Eastern Samar. From 2018 to 2020, she served as livelihood officer and community facilitator for the second phase of a project entitled Building Resilient Coastal Communities, Building on and Strengthening Gains of Rehabilitation Programs, which focused on giving support to women economic activities in order to develop the financial resilience of their respective families. Currently, she serves as research assistant for a project entitled Increasing Technical Skills Supporting Community-Based Sea Cucumber Production in Vietnam and the Philippines, which is under the auspices of the Australian Centre for International Agricultural Research at the University of the Sunshine Coast, Australia. She also serves as a focal person of the GDFI as well as Secretariat to the Alliance of 7 Municipalities for Integrated Coastal Zone Management, which aims to implement a seascape approach to sustainable coastal resource management as well as the biodiversity conservation-related activities. Friends, we are pleased to introduce to all of you today Ms. Rachel Rescordado. Our third panel member is the Development Management Officer of the Conservation and Development Division of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, Region 8. She also has been designated as Officer in Charge of the Protected Area Management and Biodiversity Conservation Section, as well as works as a regional focal person of the Wildlife Protection and Conservation Program. Today's panel member also serves as a focal person or team leader of the Regional Cave Assessment Team. Ladies and gentlemen, we are proud to introduce to all of you Mrs. Angelina A. Lantajo. Our lead discussant for this episode of Hisgut Kalibungan first developed her interest in wildlife conservation and management in Davao Oriental, where she was born. She graduated with a degree in biology from the Silliman University in Dumaguete City. Her extensive field researches around the country led to the rediscovery of species that were thought to be extinct, as well as new species like the hawk owl and monitoring waterbird in poorly known wetlands. She is currently a member of the Hornbill Species Specialist Group of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. She is also the country's representative to the Southeast Asian Bat Conservation Research Unit, as well as serves as a member of the Technical Working Group of the Philippine Red List Committee. In addition to her widely recognized expertise in conservation biology, her wider interests in related fields include wildlife population monitoring, community-based conservation education, and mainstreaming biodiversity in the government's development agenda. She now works as the Executive Director of the Philippine Biodiversity Conservation Foundation Incorporated, where she leads in the implementation of conservation programs which focuses on threatened endemic species of wildlife and globally threatened habitats in the Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our distinct honor to introduce to all of you today Ms. Lisa J. Paguntalan.
To formally start Huruhisgutay, thank you for inviting me for today's event. I am really glad to be able to share some of my insights about Eastern Visayas. It has always been a place of mystery to me. So for this afternoon's discussion, I'll be giving a little bit of background, just a very rough background about the Philippines biodiversity, and with bringing into focus the Eastern Visayas diversity, the different conservation initiatives and challenges that we are facing, as well as the opportunities that are there. Mind you, I am quite limited in what I will be talking about tonight, but this afternoon, but then we will be able to discuss that more thoroughly during the discussion as soon as I finish my talk. So, ready? This is actually a beautiful photo of the pink-bellied imperial pigeon, one of my favorite doves in the forest in the Philippines. So, as a little bit of background about the Philippines Biodiversity Conservation Foundation, we are a non-government organization that is registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission, and we are based here in Bacolod City. Our vision is the long-term conservation of Philippines' native and endemic species in their natural habitat. As you can see, we have project focus areas across the Philippines, but we don't have actually directly implementing projects in the Eastern Visayas. But that does not mean that we have not been in Eastern Visayas. In fact, we have worked closely with both Region 7 and Region 8 in implementing some of the biodiversity related activities within the islands. And just recently, we were also working with the LGU Borawan through their consultant Boboy Costas for the Mahagna Volcano Natural Park. So in terms of why Philippines is actually important, it's because we are a very small country compared to the rest of the world, and yet the number of endemic species that you can find within this cluster of islands is so enormous, and that their endemicity is higher than most of the other countries. Some of these species are actually single island endemics or only found in one or two group of islands. And this is quite amazing because we are a small archipelago with high endemicity. And let's take a look at a little bit of closer look into the Eastern Visayas region. This cluster of islands composed of Samar, Leyte, and Bohol, including that of the smaller cluster of islands on Biliran, has their own unique set of species. One of which is one of my favorite birds, the Visayan wattled broadbill, that can only be found in the lowland forests of Samar, Leyte, and Bohol. And this Eastern Visayas cluster of islands actually has their very own hornbill called the Samar hornbill. Some taxonomies would actually attribute this as a subspecies of the Mindanao hornbill, Penelopidas affinis, but there is a stronger group that is advocating that this should be separated as its own unique species, limited only to the islands of Samar, Leyte, Bohol, and Biliran. What I'm showing you is the male hornbill. And there is a poorly known species of bird called formerly as the miniature teeth babbler, but this has now been elevated into renamed as Visayan or Leyte plume babbler. And this is one of the smallest bird in the Philippines that is limited only to the islands of Leyte and Samar. So imagine that you have all of this set of species just uniquely only for your group of islands. And not to mention single island endemics. This sunbird is quite unlike that sunbird that you will find in your garden, that is the Cineris jugularis or the olive-back sunbird. This one used to be part of the metallic-winged sunbird, Aetopyga pulcherrima, but it is now its own unique species as Aetopyga decorosa. It's only found in Bohol. So this cluster of islands is really, in terms of birds, is already in their own unique set of species. And amazing that one of the most sought after bird for bird watchers here in the Philippines is actually first collected in Eastern Visayas. So when you mention Eastern Visayas, we cannot help mentioning Philippine eagle because the type specimen was collected in Paranas in 1896 and it is now hosted in the Natural History Museum of Tree. And of course, the larger species of hornbill. This used to be the rufous hornbill, but it is now split into two species. Some would argue that the Eastern Visayas group should be elevated into full species, the Semigaliatus subspecies. You see the unique difference of what is actually in Eastern Visayas from that of the rest of Mindanao is that the casque at the top of the hornbill's head or bill is actually much smaller as compared to that of Mindanao. It has a unique set of bill different from the rest of the rufous hornbill. And yet, in the future, you never know, this could be its own species. And In terms of the number of mammal species in Eastern Visayas, you see, when you Google or when you search in the internet, you will find that Samar is actually a cave capital. And despite the fact that it is a cave capital, it actually has a lower number of species of flying fox, of bats, volant mammals, as compared to the rest of the islands in the Eastern Visayas, including that of Dinagat and Siargao. It's probably because there have been fewer studies conducted on cave bats or forest bats in Samar as compared to that of Leyte. This is also the same when you take a look at the amphibians, because more species are actually found in Leyte, but we suspect there could still be more that is actually waiting for discovery or waiting for people to study, that is found in the rest of the other islands in Eastern Visayas, including that of Samar. And take a look at the number of endemic birds in Eastern Visayas. The higher number of species that are recorded today is partly attributed to the fact that we are now able to study DNA. And with the change in the ability for people to study the DNA sequences, there are more information that came out that a lot of these species that were supposed to be related were actually completely different. And that has increased the number of species that are found for each of these islands. But this is a more realistic picture of what is happening there, because the larger island should host a larger number of species, quite unlike the other species or taxa. Birds is actually a little bit more studied in Samar as compared to the rest of the Eastern Visayas. When we take a look at the number of flying foxes that are roosting per region across the Philippines, you have an identified of 16 roosts, a total for Region 8. And this is quite interesting because when the Biodiversity Management Bureau came up with their training for the regional DNR offices, there was quite a number of roosting sites that were added to the list that was compiled prior to 2016. So this is the huge contribution of the Biodiversity Management Bureau and the DNR regional offices in identifying the flying fox roost colonies, as well as validating what was used to be identified for that area. And the golden crowned flying fox is another species of interest. And to think that there has been no record of both of these species in mainland Samar, and only in the island of Kauhagan in Pambuhan, northern Samar, where there was a record of these three species, Acerodonjobatus, the Vampiros, and Hypomelanos. And this was still a record that was provided by Biodiversity Management Bureau, DNR. And this was generated by the field officer or field officers of DNR in Region 8. So there's still a lot of opportunity to find more about the flying foxes colony within Samar Island. I'm sure Ma'am Angie can actually give more insights to this one, as these records from BMB were given to us in October 2020. And interestingly, within Region 8, the protection status of the flying foxes roost were actually all outside of the protected area. Of the 16, only one of these roosting colony is found in the protected area. All the rest were within LGU managed areas. So this is again another opportunity on how to work for the conservation of this uniquely important species that pollinates and distributes a number of important plants in the forest and even in our agricultural areas. So when we take a look at the number of protected areas that has been declared within the Eastern Visayas, there were actually quite a number already. So of these three islands, Bohol has the highest number, followed by Samar and Leyte, totaling to 12 protected areas. And these are all legislated protected areas. This has been included in the expanded National Integrated Protected Area Systems Act. So, what's eating up all of this habitat? there was this study that came up in 2019 when they did a baseline study of heavy metals in seawater and macroalgae in Giwan, Eastern Samar. As you can see, there were these evidences that were shown that there are still traces of heavy metals contained into this area. So technically saying it's still contaminated. And we can say that the different moves to confiscate logs, illegally confiscate illegally collected logs, or are a good or a bad thing. But then we can see that there is a good move coming from the government to actually step up its seizure of illegal logs within Samar, or at least in the Eastern Visayas region. So this was a photo of Secretary Manny Piñol, who posted this in Facebook. This was from one of his staff, a photo of part of the Samar Island Natural Park. And this is a landscape that you will actually normally see within most of the islands in the Philippines. The forests are starting to fragment. There are agricultural encroachment, and there is separation of forest patches. So when there is this separation, there is also a separation of population of wildlife. So when wildlife are no longer connected to each other, they are no longer able to genetically enhance their population. So that is something that needs to be looked at for a long-term management of these populations of wildlife. And this was also part of the news that was, I think it came out in 2020, and this was in Biliran. And this happened at the height also of the pandemic. And this is not just only unique for the Eastern Visayas. This is also happening elsewhere around the world, actually, during the time of the pandemic. And the online trade of wildlife, particularly that of reptiles, including amphibians, they are now even much more difficult because these are online. There's a number of confiscations that were conducted by DNR, effort for the DNR Task Force Philippine Operations Group on Ivory and Illegal Wildlife Trade, or we call them POGI. But then the online trading has also got underground world is also quite innovative and very high-tech in how they move the wildlife or money in the underground world. So it's quite a challenge in that aspect. So it's not even helpful that the pandemic, when it happened, also helped perpetuate more of these illegal activities, and that Samar, Leyte, and Bohol were actually identified as those areas to be watched for by the international wildlife trade. And most of this illegal wildlife trade, there's a lot that have been interested in the monitor lizard, particularly that beautiful Samar monitor lizard because of its colorful skin. And this also came out in 2020 at the pandemic. And again, as a cave capital, this was also one of the main issues that was discussed by the different groups on how does this protect the biodiversity and the integrity of the cave system if you do this kind of projects. So is it a time for fight or flight? But I think there are a lot of opportunities that will keep us moving forward and keep on fighting, because there's been a move from the different local government to actually support or not oppose the implementation of mining operations in the area. I don't know how this will actually change, because there has been an executive order that was just signed that we are now open to mining operations here again in the Philippines. But it's good to have leaders who actually show compassion and love for the natural resources, and to make sure that they are actually protected, considering that summer is hit how many times each year with super typhoons or typhoons. and that is really, really bad if you don't have an integral ecosystem that is quite has an intact integrity. So the Samar Island Natural Park, among the other protected areas in Bohol and Leyte, still has a number of hectares of forests that needs to be badly conserved. There might be changes that has happened over the years, but it is still an opportunity to keep what we have there and to keep on protecting the area. But how to do that? The strategies of doing that, despite the challenges that we are facing, is another thing to discuss. We have Borawan. I like this place in Borawan later because you have here a local government unit working with the DNR in protecting the protected area, Mahagna volcano, including the wildlife, and working closely with the local communities in coming up with a sustainable community-based tourism. So this is also a place where it will benefit Philippine duck, or the only endemic water bird that we have until we have the Philippine swamp hen. And of course, this place is also unique to have remaining patches of forests that still harbors a lot of biodiversity, quite a high diversity of wildlife that you can find here. And this is what you are seeing for the last 3 years, at least for the last 3 years in Samar. New species that have been discovered in the island. Several, it's not just only orchids, it's actually other species of plants, even a snake, a burrowing snake that actually feeds on earthworm. This is the first time I've heard about this, and earthworms eating snake, and that you can find it actually here in Samar. And of course, this species of frog, I think this was first identified in 2012, but it was just only recently that it was published as a new species. This is both found in Bangsacolod and in some areas in northern Samar. So we reviewed earlier the conservation status of this blueback parrot, Tanignathus evereti. This is quite different with your blue-naped parrot because this is more paler bill as compared to that of the blue-nape, and this has a blueback, obviously, and that this species is slightly larger than that of the blue-nape parrot. As you can see, the strong hold of this species is that of Samar and Tawi-Tawi. For most areas where you can find it in the Philippines, it's already extinct. So the only areas where you can keep this species away from extinction is the Samar Island Natural Park and that of Tawi-Tawi. So this is a very inspiring photo of Father Roniel because he took a photo of a Philippine cockatoo in an area in southern Samar. And there are still a group of Philippine cockatoo that survives there. We can find hope in finding species, rediscovering supposed extinct species, and making sure that their habitat that they are in are protected from harm, and so their population will not go extinct. And the question always remains is that, will you fight for my survival because nobody else will speak for me? So let's talk. Thank you for listening.
Liz, thank you for the nice presentation about the situation of biodiversity in Eastern Visayas. And to mention what you highlighted is that there are probably more species to be discovered in Samar and Leyte. Since if you try to search for related studies on biodiversity in the area of Samar and Leyte, there are very, very few. So that means there's a need for more biodiversities, and especially taxonomic studies in the area. For you mentioned that a lot of number of bird species present. Not to mention the Philippine eagle still thriving in Samar, Leyte forested areas. Also, the Philippine tarsier, which supposedly or famously known only in Bohol, but still present in Samar and Leyte, and even in the Tacloban forest. So there are so many challenges that have been, meaning to say, confronting by the study of biodiversity or conserving biodiversity. So among others are the poverty situation, the poverty condition of the people. We all know that people in Samar are or the poverty level or the poverty incidence in Samar is so low that people are considered to be in a poor situation. However, some people who are also living surrounding the SINP, the Samar Island Natural Park, are also dependent on the forest. This has been monitored by the BMB studies before by the GEF project, the SIBP, if you remember, which drives the legislation of the SINP in August 13, 2003. Talking about it, the SIBP, the Samar Island Biodiversity Project, helped the proclamation or the legislation of the SINP as a protected area. However, it's just a presidential proclamation. There is a bill. There is still a bill in the House of Representatives that had been passed the second reading. However, it is still on hold for third reading. But the problem is that some congressmen are trying to what do you call this? Prevent the passing of the bill because they have mining rights in the area. So I don't know how it will be passed or will it be passed. However, the presidential proclamation can still protect the area, right? Please.
So, Sir Richard, good to see you here.
Yes.
And you are now connected pala with UP Tacloban.
Mm-hmm.
Good to know that. And so it's true that there are still a lot of species that possibly remains to be discovered in Samar, Leyte, and Bohol. You see these areas been poorly studied. There has been least attention that has been given to it. And the information that you will actually generate from science will be your weapon in order for you to protect the areas. Without the science, you will not have a good argument of why you need to protect the remaining forests, why you need to protect the wetlands, why you would need to protect the all other species. Because I think this is also one of the few areas in the Philippines which has peatlands, which has extensive mudflats, which also has a good seagrass cover, but yet not many migratory bird studies has been conducted. There's not even a Ramsar site or a wetlands of international importance been declared within the Region 8. And so it's not surprising that you cannot find any in the literature. And as to the point of saying that people are dependent on the forest, and that there's poverty is also driving is also the force behind the destruction of the forest. So that's actually a very complex issue. It's such we say one thing leads to the other. And in some cases where I have been to, when you have a rich marine life, you would actually have people that will not be dependent on the forest. It takes a lot of effort, energy, and resources to go out hunting in the forest, to go for meat or to go for all of those stuff, even to cut logs. Well, if you have a very good resources from the marine environment, you would not go for the forest. You would go for this one because that is where sureball na ang pagkain and also sureball na kasakita. So there might be other factors that influence that as well. And in terms of legislation, you have the Samar Island Natural Park already legislated as a protected area under the expanded National Integrated Protected Area System. Kasi naisama na siya sa INAIPAS Act, it is already has a legislated area. So hindi na siya presidential proclamation. Yun yung beauty ng expanded NAIPAS Act. Kasi simultaneous niyang dineclare with their own, in that legislation, ang lahat ng protected area na nasa niya at that time. So, I don't know how that will play in if it does not stop the local government from coming up with their own bill to create with their own Republic Act declaring the Samar Island Natural Park as its own protected area. I think some protected areas are doing that as well, but it is a struggle, in fact, to do that because we have to go through the 13-step process, and that's a long process with several congressmen that should really champion that cause. And with this discussion, I'd like to bring in Representative si Ma'am NG Lantaho from the DNR CDD region, what his insights about this one, because I think she is more in a position to talk more about protected areas in the Eastern Visayas, and the declarations are the link between the problems and challenges that we are facing here. Ma'am NG, kumusta na po kayo?
Okay, good afternoon everyone. Good afternoon Ma'am Lisa. Salamat, ikaw ang lead discussant namin sa ano na ito. With regards to the protected areas in Region 8, we have 7 protected areas proclaimed and legislated through INAIPAS, the RA 11038, expanded National Integrated Protected Area System. And one of which is Samar Island Natural Park. The other 6, the Giwan Marine Protected Landscape Seascape, the Calbayo Panasaiban Protected Landscape, the Cuatro Islas Protected Landscape Seascape, the Birila Rosa Protected Landscape Seascape, Lake Danao Natural Park, and Mahagno Volcano Natural Park. 3 in Leyte, 1 in Northern Samar, 1 in Giwan, and 1 in Samar. And Samar Island is between the 3 provinces of Northern Samar, Eastern Samar, and Samar.
NG,
Yes.
Sir Richard earlier was posing this question about the link of poverty, these activities surrounding the protected areas, and that they're mining. He also made mention about mining activities within these sites, as well as the other disturbances within the protected areas. So, sa inyo pong tingin, what could be the strategy in order to address people to support the biodiversity conservation or the protection of the protected area, and not be influenced to do other stuff like logging, timber cutting, or selling these logs, or selling the rights of the lands? What do you think would be realistic, practical, and effective?
Okay. One is for ecotourism program, so that the constituents will na, hindi sila dependent sa mga natural resources within the protected areas. So we have ecotourism program, and ang ano namin ngayon, yung close coordination with the communities, and we are organizing people's organization to, we are training, we are capability building on tourist guiding in collaboration with DOT.
Nakita ko po ang impact ng tourism dito sa buhay ng a lot of these people. I can see actually in some of the footages ni former then the late Secretary Gina Lopez, who had also identified some of the sites in Samar as part of her tourism or favorite sites that she is promoting. And we can see that had helped a lot of according to the documentary. But how would that now play in with this COVID pandemic? Our vaccines are delayed. We are still, I don't think Tacloban is readily accepting people from outside the same way as Negros is no longer accepting people. So
Yes,
this kind of
that's
situation,
correct, ma'am.
how is this going to, that might be, what do you think, how should people move towards this direction?
As of now, due to COVID pandemic, our protected areas, our ecotourism destination are temporarily closed from visitors due to COVID. That's why our example Leyte-Samar, but they have just opened this month, soft opening for tourists. And Mahag now, they are planning to open, but then maybe it will not be pushed through due to this pandemic without the vaccine.
I know. So I understand that the focus of DNR is actually more on the protection and management of the area. Unfortunately, the burden of doing the economic gains of finding out the economic support for the people to support also this area is being given to DNR as well. So we'd like to hear, what does GDFI actually experience, or what have they experienced on the ground? Are there, Ma'am Russell, are there learnings or experiences or maybe challenges that you are facing that you have overcome that you can also share with us? Might be useful for the rest who are also listening to this program.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Lisa. Actually, GDFI has been involved in a big conservation project in Lawaan. And we covered some parts of the SINP, not just the buffer zone, but as well as the core zone area. During 2016 to 2017, we conducted several studies on the forest. And not just did we find birds endemic to the areas, but we also have endemic species of flora. For example, different species of lawaan that are actually critically endangered right now. And in addition to the list of endemic species that was mentioned earlier, during the study, we also found out that Philippine warty pig is still present in SINP, as well as the Philippine...
Did you know that there is no record of the Philippine warty pig in Samar?
Oh, then...
I mean, officially. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go on.
Yes. Aside from that, that's a good thing, ma'am, because we actually did not publish the data yet during the study. So another thing, Philippine brown deer was also present in the area, and it's a good thing because we did not know about this, and during the project, we found out that there are illegal logging activities in the area because Lawaan still has trees that are important in the logging industry. For example, making of furniture in Marabot area. And some of the problems that we encountered, aside from illegal logging activities, are the natural disasters present. From Marabot, Lawaan, Balangiga until Hiporlos, during the summer season, wildfire is evident. And thus, even though we conducted several reforestation of the area, every year we had to check whether those reforested area are still there or they were burned into ashes again. Basically, after the study, we presented it to the community because we needed them to know what they have and what they still have and what they lost actually. So we came up with strategies such as involving them and training them on rainforestation. Because previously, agroforestry is very rampant in the Samar Island. It's actually a way to support these communities so that they won't engage in logging, but instead they would be able to plant and reforest the area. But the problem was we observed monocropping, meaning planting of cacao in watershed areas, planting of fruit trees in watershed areas, as well as other NGP projects actually. So what we did, we capacitated communities on a sustainable effort to help their area as well as gain something from it, and we implemented rainforestation activity. Rainforestation is a way to plant native species of trees and plants, but it's not monocropping. It's you preserve the endemic species in the area, you integrate it with high valued crops so that in time that these trees are not yet bearing fruits, you will be able to support your family and gain money from selling fruit crops in the community. Another thing was
Let me hold you there for a while, because I think this is also very important and timely. Considering that when we are on a lockdown, or when the governments or the provinces do not want to accept or accept people coming in, or even some of the goods are restricted in movement, so it is highly important for people to be self-sufficient, or the island itself or the different provinces should be self-sufficient. So summer is actually quite lucky, or the Eastern Visayas, because you have still land where you can actually plant these. So I wonder, were the farmers able to sell also their products or benefit from, or were they also not hampered by this pandemic, even though if they are still harvesting from their crops?
Yes, ma'am. At present, actually, the project is already finished actually it was in 2018. But our farmers are continuing what we have helped them, what we have taught them to do. And at present, actually, Lawaan, we have seen a lot of products coming from their areas. And even in Giwan, which we live, the GDFI is based, we can buy produce from their municipality. So I guess farming and during the lockdown has been productive in the area.
That is good to know.
And I also would like to add, ma'am. Yes, I also would like to add, bio-intensive gardening is also another helpful way for communities to survive in this lockdown. For example, not just in the SINP, but in an island community that we manage, for example, Maliwaliw Island. It's a fishing ground. So basically, fishers there does not know how to plant because they solely depend on the sea. Fishing. But because of bio-intensive gardening that we have been teaching them and we have been encouraging them to do starting in 2018 until 2020, when the lockdown came, the island was actually harvesting a lot of food because they did not know that the lockdown was coming, and they had a lot of plants in their garden. Even though it was just a small area in their backyard, they were able to plant vegetables that are actually native. Meaning we don't just encourage planting, but we tell them to preserve the endemicity of the plants that they plant. So I think that's a good thing.
That is really good that they had that one, that they were not left there, especially isolated, because it's kind of difficult to access or move products at the time. So before I go back to the other issues that were raised before, I'd like to bring in Ma'am Angelina about the issue with this road development. I think we share the same issues everywhere with the these protected areas. How all have these budgets allocated for road development. So the premise was this road development. How is this going to help actually with this ecotourism aspect? But I know I have a suspicion about what is that road for. But I'd like to ask Ma'am Angelina, did this road development pass through the PAMB? Did this PAMB, the Protected Area Management Board, was this given approval?
Yes, Miss Lisa. The project of the DPWH was presented to the PAMB of SINP, and due to the Build project of our present administration, it was approved. So I think it will continue an issue, but then we have a PAMB that approves and the policy making body of the protected area. So the continuation of the project was pushed through.
So in cases like this, Babenji, when you have a PAMB that actually allows for activities like this, even though there are perceived biodiversity impacts of that development, what can actually be done to address those issues, or whether or not, if we want some things like this to stop, what can a normal or ordinary citizen do?
It's
Because
very
if you
hard
have
to
a
answer
So-
because it's the PAMB who will decide the project in
Yes.
any protected area.
So who will control PAMB?
The chairman of the PAMB is our regional executive director, but he's only one vote. But then the board will decide any programs, project plans of a protected area. It's the PAMB.
I understand that. But Sir Richard, you come from Cebu, and you've been part of the Central Cebu Protected Landscape. You've been there, so you probably know something about this. What else can actually be done when you have a PAMB that actually supports development, even though it has a direct impact on the biodiversity of the area? Do you have some experiences on this?
Anyway, yes, that's true, no, Liz, that if you have road or what we call this infrastructure that cut across the protected area, it really separates or produce a fragmentation, no, of the habitat, so that will not or prevent the genetic movement of the genetic movement across these fragments or across metapopulation. I believe, that I try to believe, that when the PAMB decides on a given or on such projects, development projects, the proponents have presented a comprehensive, robust environmental impact assessment, which tries to put protection, to some important or endemic or threatened species present in the affected area. No, that's in my belief. But there are stories that some government agencies actually failed to present a robust, comprehensive environmental impact studies. I hope that's not true. No, these are stories, Ma'am Inji. No, I hope these are not true. Anyways, since it's government interaction, so I hope they follow the government laws and protocols and procedures, and hopefully those activities we know that will give us benefits in some way, actually also benefits the or will not harm the biodiversity in the area. So what I'm trying to point here is that in any government or any development activities or projects, we have this law, the Philippine EIS system that tries to protect the environment, and that's what I believe, that the PWH or any development or components of the development projects have been doing in order for such projects to be implemented. Your question is about a PAMBI that supports this development. Hindi naman tayo pwede mag-rally agad, no? Sana pwede ganon, tapos pwede natin palitan. But as I have said, maybe the PAMBI has seen the cost-benefit analysis of the project, and that's one point. Another topic to be discussed. This valuation.
So, I'd like to ask Ma'am NG about the process of how does this happen? Because immediately when there is a road development or any development for that matter inside protected area, people took a blame to DNR. Always points the blame to DNR. So we just like to clarify these things. So when it is a development project, which office is handling this, Miss NG?
Okay.
Even if it's protected area.
Yeah. The proponent or the project is DPWH. So they have to seek environmental compliance certificate from the Environmental Management Bureau. They will present their project proposal to EMB. Then if the EMB will issue ECC based on the proposal they have submitted. If they have complied all the requirements in securing the ECC. But then I'd like to point out that the members of the PAMBI are now that it is already expanded NIPAS, the members of the PAMBI from the congressman, governor, municipal representative, the mayor, and up to the barangay level. But there are people's organization and non-government organizations that are also members of the PAMBI.
Present at PAMBI.
Yeah. So maybe ganon.
So your office
Yes.
is with the Conservation Development Division.
Yes, Conservation and Development Division.
Division. That's a CDD at the regional level.
Yes.
So that would be equivalent to Biodiversity Management Bureau at the national office.
Yes, national
So,
level.
what is the role of CDD when it comes to this one, or for DNR in this matter? So if there is an applicant, or if the DPWH would be doing an infrastructure development inside the protected area, and so they would secure the permit from the PAMB, they would secure the endorsement coming from the PAMB. And then this endorsement will be given to DPWH, then am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
This will be forwarded to the Environmental Management Bureau, correct? It will not be forwarded to you.
No, to the EMB.
To the EMB. And it's a different bureau under the DNR.
Yeah.
And this is that bureau that will
Line
approve.
Bureau. Yes, yes.
Line
ma'am.
Bureau. This is the Line Bureau that will endorse or give them an environmental compliance certificate. or
Yes.
a go signal that they can now
Yeah.
proceed with it one. So once that happens, so bale, if you are not informed about this development, you would not know.
The CDD also is aware of the project, considering that we are the secretariat or the PASU of the
The protected
the
area management.
yes, ma'am.
So, because this is a line bureau inside the DNR, can the BMB also or CDD say something about that development?
Yes, we have a say on that. if we are requested to assess or inventory the biodiversity aspect in the especially within the protected area.
So only
So-
if you are requested.
Yes.
So to our partners here, Ma'am Rachel, and also to Sir Richard Parilla and to the viewers, this is just only for the enlightenment of everybody. No? So we will know which how to move around in cases like this when we are bombarded with cases like this, because we have similar experiences nationwide, I believe. So, Ma'am Rachel, this is if you are the ones on the ground questioning this one, I think raising this question to CDD or to that office of DNR will not actually be directly answering your question, because they will not be the one that will be issuing the environmental compliance certificate. Am I right, ma'am? So there should be this should be directed to the Environmental Management Bureau and to the Department of Public Works and Highways themselves, because they are the ones implementing the project. So whenever there is a development like this, we go to who is actually implementing, not who is monitoring. Because in this case, I believe our ally should be the BMB or the Conservation Development Division. We cannot put them, my opinion is, we cannot put them on a difficult position, because they should be the one who will be providing us the information that would help us move this forward. But they cannot argue with their sister line bureau because that is a separate, I think, in the government that would be quite difficult. So quite interesting this discussion, because now Ms. Rachel, about this burning climate change, your bagyo that visits the island of Samar and Leyte every now and then. You have a minimum of 25 typhoons in a year. And how would that actually, how would that road development help filter all of those rainwater and the wind shear that would actually be bombarding these trees? So I think in this aspect, I'd like you to think about your strategy. I'm going to throw back that question to you. Now that you know and understand Ma'am NG's position or the DNR's position and the way these processes are moving, how would you now move forward with if you are faced with situations like this?
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Actually, our organization is focused on environment-based strategies in building resilient communities, not just in island communities, but as well as any other communities that we work with. And with regards actually to the unstoppable construction of roads in the Philippines, which is actually still present in SINP. People should be aware whether these areas needs to be, because where there is road, inhabitants would follow because of easy access to everything that they need.
But they would also argue that when you have a road, you have now a better way of monitoring, because it's also easier to monitor. That's also their argument.
Yes, but yes, actually that's a point. But however, in building these roads, because we have existing roads in Samar Island Natural Park, which goes all the way around to the SINP. And actually the main question is, what the benefit of the economical benefit is higher compared to the amount of trees that will be cut down, given that SINP is actually the last remaining lowland forest in the Philippines. And so given that it has passed Tambi and it is now being continued, so our part as NGOs working in the ground is to actually educate people and to strengthen policies with LGUs so that these trees will remain as is, given that there is still road, but inhabitants, for example, will not be able to create establishment in the area, because it's a bypass road, and when one community builds another in that area,
everything else follows.
Everything else will follow. So I think
there is this question from John that's is asking, was there a public consultation during the environmental impact assessment or prior to the development project? Are you aware of any public consultation that had happened?
No, ma'am. I wasn't aware of any. We were not aware of any consultation that happened, actually. Back in 2017, we were working with PAMB, SINP PAMB, with a co-management agreement, because we wanted to maximize the land area, meaning the buffer and the core zone of the SINP, which is part of Lawaan, to be rainforested and to establish a buffer zone so that encroachment will not pursue in the area. However, we're not able to finish the agreement because of various reasons, and it was tackled there, the road during that time. However, PAMB was still on the process of conducting a study, so we did not actually receive any data regarding the study afterwards. So I don't know.
So in cases like this, because we are, I think we are zeroing down. We should not be thinking just only for road development. We should be thinking more about any development for that matter. When we think about the conservation of biodiversity for that area. Earlier today, I was in Balinsasayot with Lakes meeting, PAMB meeting. I have to, because we have this discussion, and this was the same question that was raised to us, because the protected area management plan was just recently approved. And in that protected area management plan, there was just only less than 10% or about 10% of the area allocated as multiple use zone. The rest is actually strict protection zone. And there is a move from the protected area superintendent to increase that multiple use zone to about close to 30% of that area. So that means reducing the strict protection zone to accommodate for the many developments that are already happening in that area. And so this is a play-in where you have people asking for, it should not just be about biodiversity, and it should also be about the people and the livelihood. We are getting hungry, and everybody's hungry, and that the only way that we can move forward is through this land. So I was asked with this question about why are you not considering this? Why can't we not change that? We are actually forced to decide to change that. And being from the NGO, we are quite outnumbered by the number of politicians who are also running for office in this next year's election. So they were also catering to the needs of the people on the ground. So in cases like this, Ma'am NG, you are from the DMR. You know how this is difficult when it comes to implementing the law, and also trying to also accommodate the needs of the people, and how to make sure that the people also benefit from the protected area. Road developments like that, or developments like this, how do you compromise? And how do you safeguard? Will the protected area management plan be enough guiding tool, and as part of that law to prevent to secure the protected area from this destruction?
Okay. Any project, all projects for that matter, in a protected area must be within the must follow what is in the management plan, protected area management. And in the management plan, we are identifying the management zones, the strict protection zone and the multiple use zone. And we identify the recreation areas in the multiple use zone. But then, due to the for ecotourism purposes, ecotourism program, some LGUs or barangay and municipal or cities try to change the area of the management zone. So it will be presented to the PAMB, and if the PAMB will, kung gusto ng PAMB na dagdagan ang multiple use zone and bawasan ang strict protection zone, it is the PAMB who will decide again.
Yes. So the PAMB can agree and change the zone just like that, and it will not. Nobody is stopping them.
No, but we will still follow the management plan. In case there are changes, a resolution will be passed with regards to the changes in the management zoning. But then, the most of our protected areas stick to the management zone. Siguro with regards to the Twin Lake, I think the protected area superintendent will stick to the management zone.
Actually, he wants the management zone change. So he was the one proposing for the change in the management zone. It is actually the PAMB now who is questioning that move. So so this is a little bit of a change for me, because the people in DRR are the people also I work with. So it's a little bit of politics, no? It's different types of politics. So when you are in a case like this, Sir Richard, how do you play around? Because I don't think you can win just by being argumentative, being theoretical, and all of that, being too academic. How do you play around to get half of what you want, at least half of what you want, and also accommodate half of what they want?
Yeah, that's actually a very challenging action you are going to do to get half of what you want and accept what they want. Maybe in my case, we have to just look into or present some let's say studies or economic valuation studies showing the benefits or the cost of doing such change in the management plan, whether it will benefit the society in general or harm the biodiversity.
I totally agree with you, because actually without the science and without the data, you don't have any arguments at all, or you can argue anywhere, padak anay lang mong tingog. So amo na ang matabo. So in this case, when you have this management plan and you have these management zones being decided by politicians and being decided by people who are also dependent on the other people's votes, who also have their own interests or personal interests in that area. So it will have to be something that has to be compromised. So in this case, it would be better if it will be for the benefit of the biodiversity. And when it is for the benefit of biodiversity, it's the decision is always no one is favored. The one is favored is actually the wildlife and the biodiversity. We don't have to favor anyone. So because we are tasked this afternoon to come up with policies or strategies at the most in order to combat things like this, we are actually at the burden of going after, instead of being proactive, we are actually reacting to the many challenges that are happening around us. So since we are at the policy level, we are at the decision maker who are making all of this move, what do you think should be important? I think, Sir Richard, you have already raised science. Can you elaborate more on that data, the things that people need to prepare for?
Yeah,
And make it practical, sir. Kay wala tay kwarta, gamay lang ang kwarta.
Anyway, yes, that's true. We need to present science-based information that will help decision makers in crafting the policies or laws. Ang gusto lang naman ng siguro what the decision makers would like to find out is how much they will gain from such activity. How many people will support on that particular decision? Kasi diba they will run for another office, another term in the office, so they wanted to get some or the points, the pogi points from the voters. So what we can do is to really involve the community, helping us in the conservation sector of the society to help us promote biodiversity conservation. So I really rally since sabi nila IEC, palaging IEC tayo and wala naman nakikita, but I still believe that education will really solve this kind of issues or problems.
So, Sir Richard has already raised that the wildlife cannot vote, but we need people to vote for the wildlife, so the wildlife's habitat are protected. So, Ma'am Rachel, would you agree with this strategy that in order for development or for the greater protection of the protected area, the strategy would actually be to talk to the people on the ground, to engage with them more about their sentiments and also their needs, at the same time having that science as a background, to use that as an argument or to use that as a means to convince people to go for the conservation of that area.
Thank you, Ma'am Lisa, and thank you so much, Sir Richard, for pointing out the importance of science in our goal. Actually, science is important, and to add on to that, it is also a strategy to actually work with community, not just asking them what are the problems that they are facing today, but actually involving them in community-based assessment so that they would know what are present there. They would be able to assess their area, whether is it improving with the strategies that we're doing, or after, for example, because Eastern Summer is a typhoon route, and what we do is we can't always go to the ground to assess things because financially we don't have money. We depend on small community so that they are able to do rapid assessments. And from there, they can feed back directly to their government, local the LGU, and say that after this typhoon, we did a rapid assessment, and these are the species still present. These are the trees that were cut down, or how many mother trees are still present. Do we still hear birds chirping? And how do we assess this? It's not hard science because scientists do that, but this community, they can have this basic background on assessment so that they would know what to do.
So thank you for that, Ms. Rachel, because you both pointed out the importance of involving communities. It has to be community-based. After all, we are declaring these protected areas for the benefit of communities. And having said that, Ms. Angie, how much does it cost to actually identify tenured migrants? And how do you resolve that issue with the non-tenured and tenured migrants and all of that? I believe there were several strategies that were already conducted by the government. Some of them were successful to some extent, and then the program changed, and then it also went berserk, and then nobody follows up. So right now, how updated are the tenured migrants in our protected area?
Okay, the first program was the survey and registration of protected area occupants, but then it was updated this 2017, the socioeconomic assessment, the SIMS, socioeconomic assessment and monitoring system.
How much would that cost for something like that to happen, like for SINP? How much is actually needed for that to happen?
We will consider the barangays within the protected area.
Yes, yes.
Example, for SINP, alam mo naman, Miss Lisa, na maraming barangays ang SINP. Even up to this year, they are still have a target of 90 barangays
still yet to be assessed.
Yes, to be surveyed. Talagang malaki. Depends on the area and the number of barangays within a protected area. That's the cost.
So, SINP is a big protected area.
Yes.
So let's go for a smaller one. Let's say,
Okay.
for example, the Biri Protected Landscape and Seascape.
Okay.
How much would that cost for a tenured migrant survey, something like that? How
Okay.
much would
For Beri, they have, I can't remember the number of barangays, sorry, Beri, but they have also many barangays, comprised of many barangays. But then the target setting for the conduct of the SIMS every year, example, this year we started the SIMS last 2017. They started with 10 barangays, then the 2018 another 10 barangays, until all the barangays will be surveyed.
How much is the cost for 10 barangays?
It is 250,000 for one barangay.
250,000 for one barangay. So if you delay, or if this is actually moved to another year for the next barangay, the number of people also increases. Rarely does it decrease, no? Sa cases na
that's
mga
true.
ganyan. So it never ends. And the former barangay, the 2017 barangays that you have surveyed, have also added more to that area. So the circle continues. It's a circular problem. So is that a proposal, the development or the identification of the tenured migrants, is that something that is only determined by DNR, or is that something that can be determined and identified and funded by PAMBI?
It is funded by the protected area. Example, SINP, they have separate funding for the survey.
But
for
this
the
is from
conduct.
from the national government.
Yes, from the
from
national
general.
government. Yes.
But then, as you are saying, it's just only like only 10 barangays for this year, or only X number of barangays. So
Yes.
again, the problem is circular. So if I am from the Protected Area Management Board and I want the tenured migrants all identified within the year, how much would that cost? And is that something that can actually be done by PAMBI? You know, PAMBI will declare. Has anyone done that, to your knowledge, that the PAMBI wanted to identify, or somebody from that group created that budget and conducted this tenured migrants and all that? So we will not be dependent of whether or not we will receive funding for next year for the next set of barangays. Is that possible?
No, Ma'am Lisa. The funding for the survey of the occupants is from our GAA, from the national
Yes.
government. It's
Pero
not it will not count from the PAMB.
But then can PAMB to raise that?
It will be on the target setting. Example for Beri, if they want to finish the survey for only 1 year, we have to target all the barangays for the example for this year, and we will allot the equivalent amount for that, how many barangays to be surveyed, but it will be dependent on our GAA.
Yes, I understand. So there is no way for other people to raise the funds that is needed to fill in the gap. Hindi pwede. Dapat sa GAA lang lahat manggaling. Is that what you are saying?
Unless may mag-sponsor na mga finance.
This is what I was actually saying. That the PAMB will raise that. The PAMB will raise that funds, and then they will identify that as a target. Kung sabihin, we wanted to finish this in a year, because a PAMB can actually do that. They can say, or the municipality would say, I will allocate a budget of this one to finish with that. I will cover the area where I am. My legislated area, and then the others can cover, or those that do not have enough budget, then that is where DNR will go, because that is where you have the budget, so we can maximize and do that. So that is actually possible to do that planning with PAMB, or
it will be possible with the LGU who will sponsor the barangays that to be surveyed for the year. Example, ang example sa Burawin, ang Burawin mag-sponsor sila ng anyway, 2 barangay lang naman they will sponsor the funding for the survey. Then
exactly.
Yes.
Because so it can be done, so they are already done with that part, and then they can move on with the development, because it is particularly within their jurisdiction and they are part of PAMB.
Yes.
So can you see yourself? What can you see, Ms. Rachel and Sir Parilla, about looking at all of the listening to all of this discussion? What are the things that we should be as Filipino do or contribute, or what can we do? How can we participate in all of this and make sure that our conservation is protected, given that the concern is actually restricted, or more or less restricted, to this policy making body?
Okay. Yes. As a Filipino, we should participate. Actually, we are encouraged to participate in any, let's say, even in the barangay level. What we call this? Ano yung mga meeting ng barangay levels na wherein they will craft resolutions for particular, let's say, development in
the Barangay Development Council.
In the Barangay Development Council, where they will do some quarterly or monthly meetings or sessions. So let us get involved. But supposedly that's one of our tasks now as Filipino people. Unfortunately, not all of us are doing that as our task as a citizen of the country. What we can do is really, since biodiversity is everybody's business, we should tell or encourage or inform those less ano yung tawag natin, yung mga wala masyadong pakialam, indifferent about what is happening in the environment. Let us get them involved in our advocacy to biodiversity conservation. Yun lang, no?
Ikaw, Ms. Rachel, may pag-asa pa ba ito? Is it a fight or flight?
Of course, we should always say fight. Involvement of everybody comes with all ages, not just the adults, but as well as the youth. Meaning building on the next generation, because actually this generation, us, for example, are the ones suffering the most with the current situation that we have with the country, for example. And we that are in the science component or aspect, we should be able to share not just with the local government unit, but with the communities that we work with, meaning let's do community validation as always, not just publish a journal, but actually present it to the community. What happened to the certain study that we conducted last year, and what about it? Actually, capacitate these people, engage on worthwhile conversations and discussions so that we can get champions from them, so that they themselves would lobby to their local governments that our area should be protected. Because, for example, us, we came from different places and we go to a place because we want to know how diverse and how beautiful their ecosystems are. But the problem, if only us would pursue and work with the government, sometimes the amor of the local government officials are not with us. What can we do about you? What would we gain from you? This is where we dwell into. We help these communities, we educate them, we capacitate them so that they themselves will be responsible. They themselves would take action and show it to their leaders that you should do this not because of these people, but because we know what is happening, and we also know that this should be done to protect our resources because we depend on them. It's a matter of taking responsibility, making them responsible on what they do, and asking for responsibility from people such as LGUs to help their constituents.
You are talking about people sharing information, youth being affected the most, and they are the ones that are suffering from all the decisions of the elders or the people before them. And that also, one thing that I can see from this discussion is that we should always elect leaders who are compassionate with nature, because they are the ones deciding in these protected areas. So I believe you should not forget that in the next election, we should be mindful of the people who will be choosing. Yes. And that this is the message that we should be putting across getting across the public, because unfortunately, they are the people that will be deciding the future of the Philippines. And having said that, I'd like to take a closer look at DNR and seeing the burden that they are also carrying in ensuring that the forest and the remaining biodiversity of Eastern Visayas, particularly that of Leyte-Samar, remains protected. Just for the purposes of understanding the context of how is it going to be implemented at the level of DNR, may I know, Ma'am NG, kung ilan po yung staff niyo sa office who are actually tasked to do the monitoring and in the protected area or involved in protected area? Sa regional office po ito, Ma'am, ha?
Oh, yeah. At the regional office from the CDD, we have 3 sections, but we have different programs that being implemented. But the protected area management is the program of the protected area management and biodiversity conservation section, wherein I'm one of the staff. So sa regional office, 6 kami na regular staff of the PAMBCS. Then we have support staff, the contractuals, but we have field staff from our CENROS and PENROS. For the protected area, we have the PASU and the assistant PASU. Then there are only 2 regular. There are forest ranger, but maximum of 2 per PA. But for protected areas, but in the CENROS, in our offices, we have staff from the conservation and development section, maximum of 4 every Senros. So, ganun lang kami kadami na regular from the regional and the field offices. But we have support staff, the job GOs.
So, 6 kayo the regular dyan sa regional office. You have 7 protected areas within the Region 8. Hindi pa kasama dito yung mga watershed, forest reserve, marine protected areas, and all of that stuff. So, ang area po ng SINP ay malaki compared sa lahat. Pero dalawa lang din ang kanyang regular na staff. Regardless kung gaano siya kalaki. So you can understand now, you're now beginning to understand the difficulty that they are implementing, because they're not just only for wildlife, they're also in the coastal, in the solid waste. Kasama pa ba sa inyo yan?
Kasama namin, pero mayroon kami section ng coastal, then sa watershed.
Sa naka-allocate
yung 6 sa pang-BCS lang yun.
Sa pang-BCS lang yan. Buti kayo, maraming tao for pang-BCS dyan sa inyo. Compared sa ibang region.
Yes, sa ibang,
So it's even
alam mo yan, yes.
So and it also depends on the leader in the regional office, if they are very good in lobbying for more funding allocated to their region. Because hatian pa rin yan ng budget from the national office. So it is exactly my sentiments that when I posted that graph on the flying foxes, that out of the 16 flying fox roosting colonies that are actually found within Region 8, only 1 is within protected area. The rest of these are outside the protected area. And I think this goes for the fisheries as well. This goes for the mangroves. This goes for the water birds and all of that stuff. They're outside of the protected area. So what is the strategy then? I'm inviting all 3 of you on how do you address cases like this when it is already outside of the regular mandate of DNR? Who should actually be the one taking the lead? And how should you bring this all together, given that we are also faced with different challenges? So can we start with you, Sir Parilla?
Okay, so maybe we could actually start if activities will be outside, the conservation activities will be outside.
So imagine may roosting site na nasa privately owned or nasa isang forest outside ng protected area.
So may nakita tayong roosting sites, let's say yung flying fox outside the protected area in the private land. So that's actually very challenging to negotiate with the landowner, private landowner, as well as to help you with your goals in protecting that particular species. So maybe what we can do is establish a memorandum of agreement with the private landowner to help.
Is there a provision, Ma'am Angie, that would actually facilitate with that under the law?
Yes, Ma'am Isa.
When it is handled by the private landowner.
Yeah, it is right, Sir Parilla. We are executing. We are close. We are in partners with the private sector and the LGUs, and we are executing memorandum of agreement in case the protected area or the critical habitat is within a private land. We have
What law po? Ano pong law ang basehan niya?
Depende, ma'am, sa program. If it's critical habitat, we have also memorandum of agreement with the landowner if it's within the private. But if it's within the barangay or LGU, we have also memorandum of agreement with DNR and the PLGU and MLGU. And the management is within the LGU. for
So
critical
it's-
habitat. Yeah.
Critical habitat is another tool that you can actually
Yeah.
explore. Under po anong law may law tayo sa critical habitat or ito yung under sa Republic Act 9147?
It is within the Republic Act 91147, but it is a technical bulletin, the guidelines in establishing a critical habitat.
Mm.
It is within the 9147, Republic Act 9147.
Okay. So there is actually a means to encourage participation from the local government and
Yes.
the private landowners.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
is this something that you can see that will work also, Ms. Rachel?
I think it is also helpful to encourage the private owner to work with the government as well as other agencies that could support them, because sometimes the private owner wouldn't have the capacity to actually conserve or protect this roosting site, for example. So there are ways, meaning not just with DNR, but maybe also cooperate with an NGO to support them with this initiative. And actually, that point, there's a question in my mind, meaning what if an area, for example, a key biodiversity area is, for example, in Humonhon, Philippine kakatu is present there and only there in the region.
Yes.
And there is an organization there that is working on establishing Humonhon as a key biodiversity area for Philippine kakatu. Now, my question would be, it's a mining site as well. So,
Is Humonhon Island a mineral reservation, Ms. Angie?
No. There's
it's
not. It's not.
it's actually not within the Giwan landscape seascape.
Yes,
Like
it's
Ani
outside.
and Humonhon, it's outside.
Yes. It's outside.
And
but it's not a mineral reservation.
No.
That is good to know.
I was just confused whether there are existing conflicts between mandates of agencies, for example, the Mining Bureau and the DENR. How do you work on with this kind of, I think, conflict on mandates when it comes to conservation?
Would you like to answer that one, or would you?
Okay. For the establishment of critical habitat in Humonhon, we are proposing that this year. We have identified only the 3 barangays, the Bitaugan, Habag, and Inapulangan. We exclude the mining area in Humonhon. We are proposing the 3 barangays that the Philippine Kokatu exists.
Ano po yung barangay, ma'am? Bitaugan?
Yeah, Barangay Bitaugan, Barangay Habag, and Inapulangan.
Inapulangan. Okay.
Yeah. We are in close collaboration, close coordination with PMPI, headed by Sir I forget. Then, we are proposing to establish the 3 barangays as critical habitat of the Philippine Kokatu. We have already started the assessment, and this month, first week of May, our team will proceed to the 3 barangay for the reassessment and for the resolution of the 3 barangays. Confirmation of the establishment of the 3 barangays as critical habitat of Philippine Kokatu. As for the other question of the conflict, the mining MGB, they have their own programs that being implemented. I don't think that there are conflict, but then as to our division, our mandate is the protection and conservation of our protected areas and wildlife and natural resources. That's our vision, mission, our mandate. The MGB, sila na mayroon silang sariling programs to be implemented. So, dito lang kami sa establishment ng critical habitat. Hindi ko masasagot ko yun, yung ano ng MGB doon.
Ma'am,
Thank you.
Pero,
ma'am,
tama po ba ako, Ma'am NG, na
Yes.
pag critical habitat yung isang area that is under sa Department Administrative Order daw with the Republic Act 9147.
Yes.
But that cannot, so pwede yung ma-supersede ng isang national interest if the mining wants to expand.
The Republic Act 9147 is also already a law. I think it will not be
establishment, but it's the critical habitat is not mentioned as part of the Republic Act 9147. It's just an addendum as part of the Department Administrative Order. So in itself, it's not a law.
Yeah,
Tama po ba?
it is within the law, section of the 9147. But then, if it is one of our program, the establishment of critical habitat, especially of critically endangered wildlife. So, not to, para hindi magkaroon ng conflict doon sa Humonhon, in-exclude na lang namin yung mining area. So sa pag-delineate ng area, ano na lang kami sa 3 barangay na nandoon yung Philippine Cockatoo.
Ano yung gusto mong sabihin, Miss Rachel, kanina?
I was asking because ma'am wasn't able to answer the previous question. So meaning,
Okay.
because of the establishment of the key biodiversity area in Humonhon, meaning it would stay protected and conserved, and this mining operations wouldn't be able to, just like what Ma'am Lisa asked, expand on those areas. And to add on, before you answer, Ma'am, would it still be the same with INAIPAS areas? Meaning when an area is proclaimed as INAIPAS, would that mean that mining operations is not allowed on this area?
Yeah. Mining is not allowed within protected areas. But then Humonhon is outside the protected area, outside the GMRPLS. That's why, kumbaga, it's beyond the management of the zoo. Yeah. So para ma-preserve yung wildlife, the Philippine Cockatoo, we proposed the 3 barangays to be established as critical habitat para ma-save naman yung nag-iisang endemic at saka critically endangered na wildlife na nandoon lang sa Humonhon.
Ang expanded NAIPAS, ang NAIPAS Act, as amended by the expanded NAIPAS Act, ay may provision ba doon na nag-recognize ng critical habitat?
Kasama yon sa yung INAIPAS kasi, expanded nationally protected, it is within protected areas, legislated protected areas. It so happened that the Humonhon is outside the protected area. So we proposed the 3 barangays to be established as critical habitat, considering that it is outside the PA. Yeah. So pwede pa rin ma-manage dahil even it's outside the PA, pwede pa rin ma-manage ng LGU.
Ang possibilities na ma-expand ang protected area to include the 3 areas, malayo pa? Or
hindi na, ma'am, pwede. Kasi dadaan pa yun sa proseso.
Pero magkalapit ang area, pwedeng i-expand.
Yun nga, kung na-legislate na kasi ang area, nakaano na yung area ng protected area, kung i-expand pa natin, it will go through the process na
Yes, considering that it will go through the process, the practicality of doing it, are they right beside each other? Kasi hindi ko alam, hindi ako familiar sa location ng barangay.
Yes, ma'am.
Are the barangays right close to each other? Can they just be expanded because they're right adjacent to each other? Is that a possibility?
adjacent, di ba, Miss Rachel?
Yes,
Adjacent, yes.
Actually, these areas are opposite to the mining area, meaning it's the last remaining watershed in Homonhon. And just for the information of everybody, the GMRPLS only covers the front area of the water area of Homonhon. So it doesn't include
It doesn't cover the land
and
protected.
municipal water at the back of the island.
Okay, so it's just a seascape. So if that's the case, so I think another strategy that could be explored would be to go for the critical habitat, to go first for the critical habitat for the immediate protection of that area, to secure that outside of the mining, and then work for the declaration and expansion of the that protected seascape to include that area as part of the protected landscape rather than create a separate protected area, because you just need a sponsor, a congressman to sponsor that that House bill. So you need to have a review on the protected area of that protected landscape and go work for that way the expansion, because that is a more feasible pathway for me. That's the way I see it, because even though the Republic Act 9147 or the critical habitat will protect the cockatoo for this one, the mineral reservation, if it will be declared as a mineral reservation, then
Yes,
we
ma'am.
cannot. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Sir
NG,
Richard.
NG, for the benefit lang ng mga nakikinig o nanonood sa atin.
Okay.
Can you elaborate how much power ko ang mabibigay ng critical habitat establishment for the protection of this species?
Okay. If a certain area be established critical habitat of a certain species, it will be managed by the LGU, specifically the barangays within and the municipal. It will be proclaimed as a critical habitat. It is our secretary who will sign the proclamation as a critical. But then, kung baga, mas mababay siya kaysa sa protected area, legislated protected area. But then, for the time being, we will fast track the establishment of the 3 barangays to be established as critical habitat of Philippine cockatoo para ma-save. Yeah, that's our main purpose this time. Okay.
It's a good strategy, actually. That is the most immediate way to do it.
Yes.
So it is to my understanding that these 3 barangays, this will now form the municipal ordinance or barangay ordinance.
Yes. Barangay and municipal ordinance, yes.
So there will be a municipal ordinance.
We have already conducted the barangay consultation with the 3 barangays. They have prepared the barangay resolution supporting the establishment of they are supporting for the establishment of the critical habitat of Philippine cockatoo.
I'd like to explore more on this critical habitat when it comes to revenues generated. So, as you said earlier, this if it's a private land or an entity or maybe a private corporation or a local government, they can actually be the one who is going to manage that critical habitat, or it's a co-management. They will be mostly doing the management. But what about if there are revenues that will be generated from it? Who is going to manage the revenue?
It will be if in case there are POs in the barangay, organized PO, they will be assigned or kumbaga sila ang priority to manage the revenue. But then there will be equal sharing between the barangay, the PO barangay, and the municipality. If there will be revenues being generated already.
So, pananglitan, if I am the
Okay.
municipal mayor, then I have this ecotourism project that I will be putting inside that critical habitat. So technically, all the budget and all the resources will be primarily coming from the municipality. And so when the revenues are starting to come in, how will that be? Of course, the understanding is that the funds will now go back to the management of that critical habitat. The revenues that are generated will be used for the management of that critical habitat.
Yes.
But would that mean that the management of that funds will solely be under the DNR, or will it also be under the LGU or the private owner?
It will be on the
Management plan.
management of the barangay, and our part will be the technical assistance. Technical assistance na lang ang mag-ano ng DNR. Pero ang management will be on the LGUs, barangay LGUs, and the municipal LGUs.
So that should be an encouragement on their part to actually
Yes.
push for this one, because
Yes,
they would
ma'am.
have a total control
Yes.
of better control actually of these little protected areas that they are creating.
The part of the DNR will be monitoring and evaluation of the
Yes.
activities.
Making sure that they are in line with the
With
provisions
the management
of the law.
plan, because a management plan will be formulated
Hmm.
when it will be established.
What about Mount Nacolod? Is Mount Nacolod going to be proposed for protected area or
It
for
is now-
critical?
It is now being proposed as a protected area
As
in
a
Southern
protected
Leyte. Yes, ma'am.
So who is pushing for this one?
Congressman Mercado.
So there is a House bill now sa Mount Nacolod.
We are still on the process of tapos na yung PASA, Protected Area Suitability Assessment. The resolution has already been crafted, and it is now the BMB who will submit all the documents to the Secretary for endorsement. Yeah, to the
Congratulations, Mom. It has been a long time.
Yes.
Quite a
Yes.
number of years to struggle for the development of Mount Nacolod. But
Yes, ma'am.
this is one of the identified key biodiversity areas of Leyte, no?
Southern Leyte. Southern
Leyte.
Leyte, yes.
So you have covered already, you have added 3 na ngayon. Lima na sa Leyte.
What? No, wala pa kasi sa Southern Leyte, kaya
I mean
expedite
for
nila.
Leyte
For Leyte,
Island.
3. Yes. For Leyte Island, 3. For Southern Leyte, wala pa. Kaya inano nila, fast track na magkaroon ng protected area sa Southern
What
Leyte.
about the peatlands in Samar? Leyte. Peatlands in Leyte and
Leyte
also
Saba
in
Basin.
Samar.
The Leyte Saba Basin, may NGO doon, yung IRR ang nagmamanage ngayon ng Leyte Saba in close coordination with DNR and Senro Palo.
Pero wala pa yung proposal for a protected area or critical habitat
Not yet.
or something. Wala
Not
pa.
yet.
What about yung sa Northern Samar, ma'am? Yung sa
Tauhagan Island.
Yes.
Ang ano na ngayon, nasa BMB na yung documents establishing din na critical habitat ng Tauhagan.
So,
Yes.
it appears to be that DNR, despite your limitations, you're actually doing quite a lot already on your plate and in pushing for the declaration of all of these sites, and at least something is already going on. So, what else do you need? What else that you would need to help you or augment what you need to propel for the declarations of all of for the safeguard of this environment?
Okay.
You have an NGO here, and you have also from the academy.
Yeah. We need the support of especially the most important support is from the barangay. Support of all our programs of DNR. Support from the barangay, from the municipal, and kung magkakaroon pa ng mga chance na may mga NGOs na mag-extend ng ng support sa mga programs ng DNR. Happy na kami doon.
Okay, so I think we have already discussed quite a lot, and we have already covered a number of topics. We haven't touched yet the very basic, closest to my heart, which is wildlife, the protection of wildlife. But I know that what we have discussed today is very important for the protection of that wildlife as well. These are talking about the protection of their habitats and the people that will be managing and overseeing their future sustainable management. And the insights coming from the academe, from the people who works on the ground, the NGOs, and also from the government themselves who had been there through thick and thin. I know that you have done a lot of work already. You have made your own separate efforts, but together you work for the same goal, that you manage to maintain, at least preserve what is left of the biodiversity of Eastern Visayas. I hope that the people today learned some of the insights from our partners. You also heard about the strategies and the difficulties that we are facing. You probably would have a better idea of how you can help the government, the people on the ground, as well as the greater Filipino people. And you know where to contact us. We will be happy to continue on serving and also sharing the information. Thank you for listening and have a great day.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, our fourth episode entitled Huruhisgutay number 4, Wildlife Conservation and Management. We trust that given this discussion forum, you have gained important insights as well as acquired a renewed understanding about this afternoon's episode. Based on the said discussion forum, please allow us to present to you Mr. John de la Cruz, University Research Associate of the Leyte-Samar Heritage Center, who shall recapitulate the highlights of this online discussion forum.
Huruhisgutay 4 focuses on the wildlife conservation and management initiatives in Eastern Visayas and beyond. Ma'am Lisa's presentation has provided us with an overview of the status of biodiversity by giving us the latest figures on the composition and diversity of the flora and faunal species that can be found in Eastern Visayas and beyond. At the same time, the presentation has defined some of the biggest challenges and problems affecting the conservation of wildlife in Eastern Visayas. These problems include wildlife hunting and poaching for pet trade, food, and medicine, human-induced habitat loss caused by deforestation, conversion of forest lands into agricultural, commercial spaces, and even for human settlements, mining, timber poaching and harvesting, and other irresponsible and unsustainable anthropogenic activities. During the forum, the panelists have put forward recommendations to address these challenges and to help save the animal and plant species, especially the endemic and critically endangered ones, from extinction. First is to conduct more studies on the habitat, ecology, and taxonomy of the wildlife that can be found in Eastern Visayas and the rest of the country. The information that can be generated from such studies will be helpful for policymakers, decision makers, and implementers in wildlife resource planning, conservation, and management in the context of sustainable development. Second, strengthen the management of existing protected areas, and provide proper protection mechanisms for areas that serve as home to endemic and critically endangered plants and animals. Some populations of iconic plants and animal species are found outside protected areas. As such, these areas must be safeguarded from irreversible ecological destruction. Protection mechanisms can be done in the form of declaration of wildlife sanctuaries through ordinances by the local government units, or as critical habitats through proclamations from the national government, or through a law declaring an area as protected area and providing mechanisms for its conservation. Third, provide alternative biodiversity-friendly livelihood opportunities for forest product-dependent communities. Non-destructive livelihood opportunities like sustainable ecotourism, rainforestation, and bio-intensive gardening can help avert continued destruction of forests and the unabated wildlife poaching and hunting. Local government units, non-government organizations, and stakeholders should organize or provide support to these kinds of initiatives. Fourth is to strictly implement existing laws regarding wildlife conservation and management and other applicable laws and regulations. It is important for LGUs, its people, and stakeholders to have a full understanding of the existing environmental laws and regulations for proper implementation. Then, implement sustainable development programs, projects, and policies in protected areas and other areas that are critical for the survival of endemic and critically endangered wildlife. Findings from comprehensive environmental impact assessments will provide insights on the cost and benefits of development programs and policies to the people and environment. Decision makers must seriously consider the results of EIA prior to the approval of any economic development program or policy in protected areas and in environmentally critical areas for the benefit of the present and future generations. Sixth is to intensify participatory and community-based approaches in wildlife conservation and management. With the limited human and fiscal resources of DENR, concerned LGUs, academics, communities, and stakeholders, together with the concerned line government agencies, must embark on collaborative initiatives for the protection and management of habitats and the endemic and critically endangered wildlife species within these areas. Seventh, raise the level of knowledge and awareness of biodiversity conservation among the local government units, communities, and stakeholders. This goal can be achieved by communicating and translating the scientific findings drawn from various studies to language or materials that can be easily understood by the people or community. Making use of available communication platforms like the social media can also help amplify the information, education, and communication efforts that are designed to enhance the appreciation and to raise the level of awareness of biodiversity among the people and community. And finally, is to build the biodiversity assessment and monitoring capacity as well as the law enforcement capacity of the community. This can be done by conducting trainings on biodiversity assessment and monitoring and environmental law enforcement, after which local communities can participate in biodiversity evaluation and monitoring either as forest wardens or volunteers. Local communities must be empowered to lead their own wildlife protection and management initiatives.
Friends, we hope that this fourth episode has deepened and broadened our awareness and understanding of wildlife conservation and management in Eastern Visayas. We would like to remind everyone that Hisgut Kalibungan may be viewed on the Facebook page of the Leyte-Samar Heritage Center as well as the official Facebook page of UPV Tacloban College. Thank you very much for being part of this meaningful online presentation. We look forward to having all of you again in future Hisgut Kalibungan online events of the Leyte-Samar Heritage Center of UPV Tacloban College. Maupay nga kulup haaton nga tanan.